thank you for coming on, Isak. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Isak, how did you get started in computers? What's your origin story?
Yeah, well, both my parents were quite tech savvy when I was a kid, so we had like computers at home from early on. So we had a like ancient Macintosh. I don't know like which operating system or anything it was, but it could dual boot Windows and Mac, so you can jump into like the different OSs and to access different games were probably the things that I did back then. But then, yeah, growing up a lot of computer games and that kind of stuff, and somehow I think someone told me at some point that like programming was really hard and basically for geniuses. So I like stayed off programming because I thought that's not for me. I'm not a genius. And then I took a programming course when I was like 18 and got into it and found that, well, this is possible. You can do this. But at that point, I really had like a clear career path that I was on my way to do. So it got like a few more years, like 7-8 more years until I started it as a profession. And until then I did it on the sides and stuff. And I'm actually pretty happy it was that quick, because I think if I would have found programming earlier, I wouldn't have done anything else, because now I'm here and I don't see myself going anywhere, and I've been here for over 10 years now, and I still think it's really like fun and exciting still.
So you started as a gamer and turned into programming a little bit later on?
Yeah, sort of like that, yeah.
Are you still into video games or is that
no, not at all.
Class?
After kids and stuff, like video games are nowhere, and I think also like programming ate up a bit of the gaming time. I prefer to like work on fun programming stuff than playing games. It sort of like fulfills the same itch.
So did you start doing web development first, or did you do like sort of classic software development with CLIs or desktop apps? Or
the programming course I took was in like Visual Basic 6. Which was ancient even then, but I think the programming teacher was a bit lazy maybe. Didn't like to update his stuff. But it would say it's a great learning platform. It's really easy to just get going. So you have like drag and drop your controls into like a screen, and then you double click the button, and then you get the event handler for the button. So it was very easy to like get started, and you could do some things like graphical, like binding stuff, and so it was like an easy way to like get your feet wet. But then I picked up PHP after that because I wanted to do stuff for the web, and then PHP was accessible, so I got started there. And then when I started working professional, I got a job in .NET through a friend. So my first few years I was writing .NET.
So .NET, was that C# or Visual Basic or was it back then?
That was C#.
Yeah.
So I really like C# still. I think it's a really competent language, and it would be fun to go back and do some C# again. I really like got the grip of the like .NET part. I was sort of like staying a little bit out of it because I was a little bit scared of it. But if I was to do it again, probably enforce or like take advantage of the whole .NET platform.
Yeah, I used to dabble in .NET as well and really enjoy C#. And if I'm not completely misremembering, I feel like Taylor Otwell of Laravel, of course, used to do C# just prior to starting Laravel. I think he did some .NET development for a while there.
Yeah,
Does that ring a bell?
I heard that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why Blade is called Blade, because it was inspired by Razor, which is .NET.
I did not know that.
Engine. Yeah, I think I heard that somewhere, and it sort of makes sense.
Cool. So if you turn back time, do you remember like the first app you built, or like, desktop application or something you built? Do you remember one of the first projects where you coded something and it like did something?
Yeah, I did for my like for the programming course, for the like final exam. I did like a 4 in a row game. And it had some like animations when they like fell into place, and also a super basic opponent that would like that you would play against. Really rudimentary, but it was still like not random. You would try to come up with ways to make it win. So I remember that, and I completed it and I submitted it, and that was like the first thing, and not just half-baked thing.
That's awesome. So you basically did the physics emulation for dropping the buttons, right?
Yeah. And
if you want to be a little bit generous.
A little bit, like, yeah.
So that's
exactly,
awesome.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
And
Do
then
you
I
have
tried
like
to build like different stuff after that in VB6, like a Tetris that was never completed and that kind of stuff. And then when I moved to web development, then it wasn't like games anymore. Then it was more like cruddy applications and all these classic to-do list and Twitter clones and everything like that. But
yeah,
not as flashy as the VB6 stuff for sure.
So you have a sweet spot for the old classic, like super classic games like Tetris and Snake and stuff like that. That was kind of a fun way to get into it.
Yeah. And that was also like back in the ancient Macintosh days. With mom and dad, that was the games that were playable. So of course those are the classics has a place in my heart still. Absolutely.
So you're of course here because you are coming back for the second time actually as a speaker at Laravel Live this year. We were so excited to have you last year and really enjoyed your talk. We just had to have you back. So we're really happy that you're able to make it. But you're of course not doing the same talk this year. So do you want to give us a peek behind the veil and tell us a little bit about what you're going to talk about this year at Laravel Live?
Yeah, sure. So last year I talked about legacy code and about how to modernize a legacy code base and how to do it with Laravel. And it's sort of on the same line, but instead of like focusing on the code, we focus on the database and the database structure and what you do if the database structure is not what you have wanted it to be, which is quite tricky because you can't just update the database structure because you might have like thousands of files that reference it, and those, in our case, those files are untested files and files that you are not entirely sure of what they do and what it would mean if you change them too much. So we have tried different ways of like handling this problem, and one of the ways that we've tried is like the repository pattern, like abstracting away the database. So it's like our adventure with a repository pattern, like what the issues we had, how we like saw this pattern as a solution, how we tried it, and how it actually went. So
it's really exciting because it's like a real life story. It's not just here's a theoretical pattern you might want to use for something. This is like, hey, this is how we actually used it to solve the challenge we had.
Exactly, and last time I was on, it was more like this is a tried concept that we have successfully done, and this time it's more like we tried it, maybe it wasn't perfect, we maybe took it a bit too far in some places, and mistakes were definitely made. So it's more like a follow along the journey and see where we got burned.
I really enjoy that kind of talk because I get to actually hear some of the mistakes that were happening along the way, so I can perhaps try to avoid those mistakes. I really love that.
Yeah, and also a bit more like putting myself out there, because I have to admit that I thought this was a really good idea. It wasn't, and here's why. So, but I think it will be fun to share, and as you say, to follow along, and also not just see the good results all the time, and also see some mistakes being made, and that's kind of stuff can be nice to follow along to, and a bit more humble approach to problem solving, and how I think most of us work day to day. You do stuff, you try stuff, most of it work, some of it doesn't.
Speaking of working day to day, I can't help but thinking about AI coding, which is of course bigger than ever. Have you started to embrace using Cursor or Claude Code, anything in your workflow? How do you picture that?
I'm doing everything in Cursor, and I'm sort of going a little forwards and back on how much I use it, because sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes you feel like if I would have just done this by myself from the beginning, I would have saved so much time. So still, like working with legacy, I think it's hard. It's just the context window is far too small still to know all the nooks and crannies of what you can and can't do and stuff. But for like now I'm creating something new, and to instruct it to create like all the boilerplate stuff you need, if it's like controllers or migration, so then it just saves a bunch of time. And also to just, I've written a class, just write a test for this, please. And then it just creates the file and creates all the scaffolding and makes a pretty good start. And then you can just go and work from there. So
that's definitely one
really well.
Place where I love to try it out more is trying to have a test built for untested code, as you mentioned, having parts of the code base are untested, and having sort of the LLM go and do a first stab at stopping out some test cases. It's probably not going to be perfect, but doing all of the boilerplate and getting the ball rolling on a test suite is probably a big time saver.
Yeah. And I have worked a little bit on like side project things in like JavaScript, and there I think it's way ahead. But then it's also like new code. It's not any legacy. But I think it knows front end stuff really well, and you can, because there are like gave a prompt and I had working code in actual features in like seconds. So I felt the magic there, and I hope it will come to us on the PHP side too. Because I think it's way ahead in the JavaScript world as I have experienced it.
Yeah, I think some of the challenges are also newer versions of things, right? So Tailwind 3 versus Tailwind 4. Have any issues with mixing up Tailwind 3 and 4 syntax? Same thing with Livewire. Seems a little bit behind on that too, right?
Yeah. We haven't upgraded to Tailwind 4 yet, so
okay.
I haven't.
Well, I have neither, so it's.
I'm sorry to say. And also haven't done very much Livewire lately, so I can't. I don't know really there either if it's. So
you're golden. You're good.
I'm golden in the versioning things, at least. I haven't had any issues there.
Right, yeah. I only use Tailwind 4 in a couple of smaller side projects, so it hasn't been as big of an issue. But I've heard other people grumble about it getting confused.
Yeah, okay. I've been since like Tailwind version very low. I thought like, well, Tailwind, it's feature complete, it's perfect. Why do I need to update? But then you see, okay, but this is actually pretty nice. But it feels like every version I feel like, okay, now they can't possibly make this better. It's perfect. So,
right, exactly.
So the urge to update haven't been that strong.
I was dreading updating my one side project from 3 to 4. And it's like, I don't want to spend all this time doing this. And I tried their automated tool to upgrade, and it took a couple of minutes and it just worked, and I was so shocked. I was like, there's no way it just works. Like all the edge cases, and I'm probably doing some weird thing. No, it just worked. So I was like, okay, it's fine. I can upgrade to my day-to-day projects and for Tailwind 4 as well, but just haven't gotten around to do it yet.
Yeah, but it sounds like good news. That's promising.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
Cool.
So you're going to Copenhagen in a few months here for Laravel Live. Is there anything you must see or eat or experience while you're there? Anything particular that you want to see?
Well, I lived in Copenhagen for a year, so I think I've like seen the sights and stuff. But what was one of the highlights of the last trip, because I had my colleagues also with me, is that we realized that you can get gin and tonic like in a pitcher. You can't get that in Sweden. So I'm looking forward to having a gin and tonic pitcher after the talk is done.
That sounds amazing. Where was that? Was that near the venue, or was it somewhere else in Copenhagen?
No, it was just outside. I forgot the name, but food court.
Yeah, one of the food trucks had it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll take a mental note here.
It was really nice.
That's really awesome. All right. Well, it was really nice to have you on, and I'm so excited to hear your repository pattern talk in a few months. And I hope you're gonna have a good time.
Thanks a lot for having me. Looking forward to going to Laravel Live again, and really happy to be to have been to every Laravel Live ever.
That was Isak. If you want to hear more from Isak and the other speakers, go ahead and buy your ticket now at laravellive.dk.